The war in the Pacific is raging. American aircraft are being torn apart by the infamous Japanese Zero. No Allied plane can match the agile Dogfighter. Then, the U.S. Navy unleashes the powerful new F-6F Hellcat, the legendary warbird destined to destroy over 5,000 enemy planes and score the greatest kill ratio of any fighter.
It's going to be behind your target, so you have to pull your nose out in front, shoot out in front, and basically let those bullets meet that target in a point in space.
Duncan's technique is perfect.
I just held what I had, and he flew right in front of me. And it was the easiest shot I'd ever made. I opened up and he blew up immediately.
Duncan's .50 caliber rounds detonate the Zero's unarmored fuel tank. Ensign Robert Duncan has just scored his first aerial kill of the war. But it's another major milestone.
I was the first one with a Hellcat to ever shoot down a Zero.
There's no time to celebrate. Duncan is about to square off against a Japanese ace, 59 kills against no losses. Through the early months of World War II, Japanese aerial victories mounted. The truth was inescapable. The 300-mile-per-hour Zero, or Zeke as it was codenamed, was the most capable fighter in the Pacific.
The exceptional range and performance of the Zero was evident from the first day of the Pacific square miles of planet Earth, and that meant that any aircraft committed to that battle was going to have long legs.
It was clear a more powerful fighter was needed to challenge the Zero. The Navy accelerated development of the new F-6F Hellcat. The Hellcat was a key element of a new strategic naval concept.
Hellcat, it was chasing the Zero, but he wasn't in range to get our man.
Duncan is here. The first Zero is here. The other Hellcat pilot is on his 6 o'clock. The second Zero is diving, gaining airspeed and closing on the Hellcat. Duncan, out of range for machine gun fire, must close the distance. He adds. This raid is a critical test for the new fast carriers and the Hellcat fighters. Their effectiveness will determine the strategy for the rest of the Pacific War. Ensign Robert Duncan is dueling with a formidable Japanese ace, Toshiyuki Sueda. Sueda has made a bold move. He's taken the fight into the vertical, where the Zero excels. Exactly what Sueda wants him to do.
So I started up after him. I poured the coal onto it.
But this isn't the underpowered Wildcat. The new Hellcat, with superchargers whining, easily keeps pace with the Zero. Sueda reaches the top of his climb and confidently noses over, anticipating the sight of a stalled American aircraft below. The reality is,
I thought, poor young fella, you sure didn't know what you were doing.
the Zero bursts into flames and spirals down towards the sea. The Japanese ace has made a fatal error. He thought he was dogfighting the old American Wildcat.
I then realized why he did what he did. He'd shot down most of his planes, pulling this trick.
90% of the Japanese ground facilities. 6 Hellcats are lost in dogfights. Another 6 fall to anti-aircraft fire. The F-6F has demonstrated its mettle against the rising sun. Back in the U.S., the engineers at Grumman Aircraft breathe a sigh of relief. Their careful design and testing has paid off. Same rugged construction and heavy armor protection that earned the company the nickname Ironworks. The plane featured thick armor plating around the engine and cockpit, bullet-resistant windscreens, and rubber-coated self-sealing fuel tanks.
Grumman, as a designer, had tremendous respect for the pilots in terms of their lives and their safety. They knew that it was not enough for a pilot to just...
The plane, dubbed the Akutan Zero, was hurriedly shipped to San Diego, where it was rebuilt, repainted with U.S. markings, and thoroughly flight tested by the Americans.
Having the Zero in hand allowed us to actually test it and to compare it to all of our existing fighters, to tell where its strengths were and where its weaknesses were. That's not an academic exercise. That's an exercise to tell our pilots where they are strongest, where the Zero...
Now Hamilton McWhorter will put it into practice. McWhorter is heading into a swirling mass of Zeros and Hellcats. He spots a Hellcat with a Zero on its 6 o'clock.
I could see a big piece of metal flying off the Hellcat.
The wounded Hellcat is here. The Zero is right behind him. McWhorter is here. He will pull a high G clock Zero at 1 o'clock high, 2,000 feet away. He pitches up and banks right on an intercept course. It looks like another easy kill. But suddenly, he's jolted by a loud noise.
Best way I can describe it is if you're standing in a metal shed and someone throws a couple of big handfuls of rocks against the outside. That's what it sounds like when your plane gets hit.
It says, get your head up and look around. Get your head on a swivel.
A Zero, making a high-speed pass from above, rakes his Hellcat with machine gun fire. Stunned, McWhorter looks around to find 2 more Zeros directly on his tail. McWhorter is here, chasing a Zero. The Zero shooting at him is here. McWhorter never sees this plane, but its gunfire actually saves his life by...
At that point, he looks through his windscreen and sees an aircraft passing directly in his line of travel. McWhorter slides his aircraft into the same plane with the Zero and rakes him with gunfire and gets a kill.
Now he's had his second kill within about 45 seconds.
He pulls his aircraft up out of its dive, climbs to 3,000 feet, and again heads for the rendezvous point. Then, from 11 o'clock, another Zero dives directly toward him. McWhorter breaks left to engage. The Zero rolls toward his Hellcat. The enemy has the altitude advantage. That translates to more energy. The November 11th attack on Rabaul lasts less than 1 hour. The Americans sink the Japanese destroyer Suzunami and destroy 20 planes. Later that day, the Japanese launch a counterattack, but they are intercepted en route, and another 35 Japanese planes are down. So many enemy pilots are lost, the Japanese cannot effectively respond to the invasion of Tarawa.
Their version of Gibraltar or Pearl Harbor. And the propaganda was very strong that Truk would be an incredibly tough fight.
The barrier reefs that surround Truk put the atoll out of range of the battleship's big guns. The only way in is by air. The plan calls for a 2-day raid. Day 1 is a fighter sweep. 72
rapidly collapsing in the Central Pacific.
The skill of American pilots, combined with the Hellcat's superb flying characteristics, helped turn the tide against the Japanese.
The Hellcat, in tremendous numbers, with great quality control, with survivability, with lethality, really made a difference in the Pacific War. 75% of all the Navy's air-to-air kills were from...